Welcome. You are watching Flat Earth Science, where we examine evidence of a flat Earth found in ancient maps. We live in a world of constant visual input, where the images we see every day are meant to define the very boundaries of our existence. We are taught to trust the lines drawn on our screens and the projections printed on our walls, accepting them as absolute truth because they match the models we've been given since childhood. But for many, there is a persistent, quiet tension, a feeling that something is missing from the picture. You look at the maps that guide our modern world, yet you cannot shake the sense that they are merely approximations of a much deeper, more profound reality. You find yourself wondering why the geometry of our world feels so vastly different from the charts handed down by those who came before us. For those who believe in a flat Earth, please share in the comments what was the turning point for your convictions. How did you arrive at this conclusion, and how do others perceive you? Trust me, everyone will want to hear your story. You are not alone. This is not a question for the casual observer or the one satisfied with easy answers. This is a search for those who feel the friction between modern instruction and ancient intuition. It is for the person who looks at the vastness of the horizon and feels a mismatch between the curvature we are told exists and the level, expansive reality we actually experience. Perhaps you have felt a subtle tug of curiosity, an instinctual recognition that the maps of our ancestors weren't just artistic flourishes, but something much more significant. For some, these questions might seem irrelevant or even confusing, but for you, they are the keys to a door that has been standing ajar for centuries. In this exploration, we are not merely looking at ink on parchment or pixels on a screen. We are looking for the fingerprints of an older, forgotten truth. We are tracing the lines left by the navigators, the cartographers, and the watchers of old to see what they truly understood about the world they inhabited. We will examine the geometry of the ancient charts to understand why they look the way they do and why the modern projections might be masking a much more elegant truth. By the end of this journey, you won't just see a map. You will begin to see the world through a different lens entirely, uncovering the hidden logic that has been hidden in plain sight for generations. This is for the seeker who is ready to reconcile the wisdom of the past with the reality of the present. Hit that like button if you're on a journey toward mindfulness. Then, share your thoughts in the comments about why this matters to you. Evidence of a flat Earth in ancient maps. The ancient truth. The modern map versus the ancient truth. Look closely at the maps hanging in your classrooms and the digital projections on your screens. They present a seamless, spinning sphere, a seamless mathematical abstraction that has become the very foundation of our modern identity. We are told that this globe is the only possible reality, a mathematical necessity that justifies our place in a vast, indifferent vacuum. But when we peel back the layers of modern cartography to examine the ancient maps, the parchments and scrolls crafted by civilizations that lived in harmony with the physical world, we find a different story. We find maps that do not depict a spinning ball, but a structured, stationary plane. We find maps where the oceans are contained, where the firmament is a tangible reality, and where the layout of the world matches the eyewitness accounts of the ancients. The modern map is a masterpiece of abstraction. The ancient truth is a masterpiece of observation. The great deception lies in the transition from what we can see to what we are told to believe. If you stand on a beach and look toward the horizon, the world does not curve away from you. It meets you at eye level, a perfect, level plane. Yet, we are trained from infancy to ignore our own senses in favor of a complex model that requires us stretching the truth to fit the mathematics. The modern map is a tool of displacement. It is designed to make us feel small, a mere speck of dust lost in an infinite void, easily managed and easily controlled. But the ancient maps, the maps of the ancients who lived under the watchful eye of the Creator, depict a world of boundaries and foundations. They show a world that is centered, fixed, and purposeful. These maps were not mere approximations. They were reflections of a design that places humanity at the heart of a stable, immovable stage. Why the discrepancy? Why has the modern map succeeded in eclipsing the ancient truth? It is because the globe provides a perfect veil for the modern establishment. By convincing us that we are on a spinning ball, they can explain away the lack of motion, the stability of the atmosphere, and the very structure of the heavens as mere physics. It is a clever, sophisticated way to hide the truth in plain sight. They use the complexity of the globe to manufacture a sense of awe that replaces the true, healthy awe of the gospel. When we look at a globe, we are looking at a mathematical lie that obscures the majesty of the firmament. The ancients did not need satellites to know the truth. They had the clarity of the heavens and the stability of the earth beneath their feet. The modern map is a product of an era that values the theoretical over the tangible. It is a tool used by those who wish to manage our perception of reality, leading us into a cycle of dependency on experts and models rather than the truth of the word and the evidence of our senses. If we can convince a man that his world is a spinning, drifting sphere, we can convince him that his origin is an accident and his purpose is an illusion. But when we return to the ancient maps, we find the truth of a fixed earth, a world designed with intention. We find the reality of a stable foundation that does not shift or slide. It is time to stop looking at the globe as a definitive truth and start looking at it as a sophisticated distraction. We must bridge the gap between the modern map and the ancient truth, for in that reconciliation, we find our way back to the truth of our creation. Why do our ancestors draw differently? When we gaze upon the cartographic treasures of antiquity, the maps drawn by the hands of men thousands of years ago, we are often met with a patronizing smirk from the modern academic. They look at the circular projections, the equidistant azimuthal maps, and the depictions of a central landmass surrounded by a great ice rim, and they dismiss them as primitive misunderstandings. They suggest that our ancestors were simply too uneducated, too unrefined to grasp the curvature of a globe. But we must ask ourselves if they were merely wrong. Why did they draw with such consistent, mathematical, and structural precision? Why do these ancient maps so often align perfectly with the physical reality of our horizon and the structural logic of a fixed, stationary plane? The modern skeptic assumes that history is a linear progression from ignorance to enlightenment. But this is a grand deception. They want you to believe that ancient peoples were stumbling in the dark, waiting for a telescope to tell them where they stood. But the ancients weren't drawing models to represent a mathematical abstraction. They were drawing the world as it was laid out before their eyes. When an ancient cartographer placed the world as a plane, he wasn't failing to see a sphere. He was accurately recording the firmament, the earth, and the bounds of the habitable world. They didn't draw differently because they were confused. They drew differently because they were observing the truth of a created, stationary foundation. If we look at the maps of the 1500s, or even the much older traditions of the Mediterranean and the East, we see a recurring blueprint. Why would a culture, without the benefit of modern satellites, consistently depict a world that is centered, bounded, and stable? The answer lies in the difference between a mathematical model and a physical reality. Modern science has traded the reality of our senses for the abstraction of equations. We have been taught to trust a calculation over our own eyes. Our ancestors, however, possessed a wisdom that we have traded for a cleverness that leaves us adrift. They understood that the earth was the footstool of the Creator, a fixed and unmoving stage for the drama of life. They didn't need to solve the earth. They simply needed to witness it. Why do we struggle to reconcile these ancient depictions with our modern textbooks? It is because we have been conditioned to believe that complexity equals truth. We are told that the globe is too complex for the ancients to have understood. Yet they navigated the oceans with precision, using the very maps we now call flat. They used the stars as a fixed canopy, moving over a stable earth, just as the scriptures describe. The discrepancy isn't in their ability to observe. The discrepancy is in our willingness to accept what they saw. We have replaced the solid ground of their truth with a spinning, tilting, spinning void that leaves the human soul feeling small and insignificant. They didn't draw differently because they were lost. They drew differently because they knew exactly where they stood. They knew they were at the center of a purposeful design, not a speck of dust in an infinite vacuum. The mystery of the equidistant projection. Now, let us gaze upon the maps that have guided the mariner and the explorer for centuries, and ask ourselves, does the geometry of the parchment reflect the reality of the world, or merely a clever mathematical deception? When we look at the azimuthal equidistant projection, the very map used by global navigators and even the emblem of the United Nations, we are confronted with a profound mystery. It is a map that places the North Pole at the center, with the continents radiating outward and the southern lands forming a vast encircling ring. To the modern student, this is merely a projection, a necessary distortion to flatten a sphere. But if we look closer, if we peel back the layers of modern indoctrination, we find that this projection is not a distortion at all. It is a perfect, literal representation of our world. Consider the mathematical elegance of this design. In a spherical model, the distances between the southern continents should shrink toward a single point. Yet in this projection, they stretch wide, preserving the true relationship of landmasses around the central north. When we observe the ancient maps of the ancients, the maps drawn by those who lived before the era of mass-scale skepticism, we see a consistent truth. They understood that the earth is a stationary plane, a fixed foundation set upon its pillars. Why, then, do we use a map that perfectly illustrates a circular, bounded plane, only to tell ourselves it is a fake version of a globe? It is a curious paradox. We use the truth to teach a lie. We take the geometric reality of a flat, bounded earth and label it a projection to soothe our minds when the math doesn't quite fit the globe. This is where the mystery deepens. If the earth were a spinning ball, the distances in the southern hemisphere would be vastly different on these maps. But when sailors navigate, when flight paths are plotted, and when the great currents of our oceans move, they follow the geometry laid out in this very projection. The mystery is not that the map is inaccurate, but that the map is so accurate it threatens the modern consensus. The ancients knew that the world was a bounded, orderly creation, a vast plain with the north as a central hub. They did not need to project anything. They simply described the world as it was. Who benefits from this confusion? Who gains from us believing that the maps we hold are merely approximations? It is the architects of the modern era who wish to keep us feeling small, adrift in a cosmic void, rather than grounded on a stable, purposeful design. By convincing us that the flat map is a distortion, they make the globe seem like the only truth. They use the mathematics of the projection to hide the reality of the plane. But as we look at these ancient blueprints, we see they are not trying to represent a sphere. They are providing an accurate scale of the world. We are living in a masterpiece of design, yet we have been taught to see the truth as an illusion. We must ask, is the map a lie, or is the globe the lie? The geometry suggests that the truth has been hiding in plain sight, right there on the navigator's table, waiting for us to have the courage to see it. How did they navigate without a globe? If the ancients possessed a spherical world to traverse, how is it that their maps, those hand-drawn blueprints of the world, so consistently depict a stationary, leveled plain? We are told by modern academia that sailors once vanished into the void of a curved horizon. Yet, when we look at the maps of the first millennium, or the cartography of the great explorers from a few hundred years ago, we see a consistent truth. The Earth is a fixed foundation, a firmament-bounded plain. These maps were not merely artistic flourishes. They were functional tools of survival. If the Earth were a spinning ball hurtling through a vacuum, the mathematics of ancient navigation would have been a chaotic nightmare of shifting curvatures. Instead, we see a different reality. They navigated by the fixed, unmoving heavens and the reliable, level surfaces of the sea. They didn't need to account for a curving horizon, because the horizon is a line of perspective, not a physical bend. They used the stars as a celestial clockwork, fixed above a stable plane, just as they were placed by the Creator. But this leads us to the most pressing question: how could they navigate without a globe? If they were constantly fighting the curvature of the Earth, how did they master the seas with such precision? The answer lies in the fact that they were not navigating a sphere, but a vast, bounded plain. When a mariner looks out from a ship, he does not see a curve disappearing from the bottom up. He sees a vanishing point where the eye meets the level sea. The ancients understood the geometry of the plane. They used the stars, the lights in the firmament, as a constant, reliable reference point. In a world where the heavens are fixed and the Earth is stationary, navigation becomes a matter of simple, elegant geometry. They used the sun path, the stars, and the wind, all within a stable system. To suggest they were lost without a globe is to ignore the sheer success of their voyages. They didn't find their way by calculating a spherical flight path. They found their way by following the fixed landmarks of the heavens across a level sea. Modernity has tried to convince us that ancient sailors were somehow primitive because they didn't use complex spherical trigonometry to combat the Earth's curve. This is the great deception, a false stereotype designed to make us feel small, adrift, and dependent on complex man-made mathematics to explain the simple reality of our senses. We are told that without the globe, their journeys would have been impossible. Yet, the maps tell a story of a world that was understood, measured, and conquered through the wisdom of a stable earth. The ancients didn't struggle with a spinning globe because they were living on the firmament they were created to inhabit. They used the geometry of the plane to move from one point to another, relying on the truth of their eyes and the consistency of the heavens. Today, we are often told that the complexity of the globe is necessary for our technology to function. Yet we see that the most ancient wisdom was built on the foundation of a stable, unmoving world. We have been sold a narrative of constant motion to keep us feeling unstable, to keep us looking to experts to tell us where we are. But if we look at the history of the maps and the reality of the sea, we realize that the ancients were not lost. They were perfectly at home. They navigated the world because the world was a predictable, orderly place, designed with a beginning and a firm foundation. They were not spinning through a void. They were walking upon a stage, guided by the stars, moving with the certainty of a world that stands still. What is the ice wall boundary? Wait, what is the ice wall boundary? If we look closely at these ancient cartographic records, these blueprints of our world from centuries ago, we find ourselves standing at a precipice of a profound realization. When we examine the maps of the ancients, we aren't just looking at primitive attempts to plot geography. We are looking at a structural truth that they understood through the lens of their environment. But as we trace the edges of these maps, a singular, formidable feature begins to emerge, repeated in spirit and in form across disparate cultures, the Great Perimeter. We must ask ourselves, what is this boundary? In many of these ancient renderings, the world does not simply end in a void or a vanishing point of a sphere. Instead, there is a containment. There is a rim. When the ancients spoke of the ends of the earth, they weren't speaking in metaphors of a vanishing horizon. They were describing a physical reality. This brings us to the question that the modern, globe-centric education system tries so desperately to bypass: what is the ice wall? If the Earth is a plane, as these maps suggest, there must be a container to hold the vast oceans in place. We are told that the oceans are merely held by gravity, a convenient mathematical fix to explain away the lack of a physical container. But gravity is an invisible hand, a theoretical glue used to patch the holes in a crumbling model. The ancients, however, understood the necessity of a boundary. They saw the mountains of ice, the massive, unyielding rampart that encircles our known world. This is not merely a frozen wasteland. It is the great boundary, the cosmic wall that separates the habitable realm from the vast, unknowable expanses beyond. In many ancient traditions, this was the edge of the world, a place where the physical meets the divine. If we look at the historical accounts of exploration, we see a recurring motif of explorers reaching a massive, impassable barrier of ice, a wall that keeps the waters of our world within the basin. Modernity wants to tell you that Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of a ball, a lonely place of wind and snow. But if the maps are true and the geometry of the ancients is sound, then Antarctica is not a continent at all. It is the ring. It is the wall that holds the atmosphere and the seas. Think of the sheer scale of this. If there is a boundary, it serves a purpose. It is the container of our life-sustaining systems. Why has the globalist narrative worked so hard to obscure this? Why is it so difficult to simply fly over the pole? Because the truth of the wall challenges the very foundation of their controlled reality. To accept the wall is to accept that we live in a designed, enclosed system, a masterpiece of creation. It suggests that we are not on a spinning speck lost in an infinite vacuum, but in a stable, bounded, and purposeful habitat. The ice wall is the physical evidence of a world with limits, a world that was structured with intention. It is the silent, frozen guardian of the human realm, and the truth of its existence changes everything about how we perceive our place in the cosmos. The hidden geometry of ancient charts. When we gaze upon the maps of our ancestors, we aren't merely looking at ink on parchment. We are looking at a window into a lost understanding of the cosmos. Modernists would have you believe that ancient cartography was merely a collection of primitive guesses, a clumsy attempt to sketch a sphere they couldn't possibly comprehend. But if we look closer, if we peel back the layers of modern indoctrination, we find a profound and terrifyingly consistent geometry. These maps weren't attempts to represent a globe. They were precise mathematical blueprints of the world as it was designed. The geometry of the ancients was not a guess. It's a reflection of a fixed, immovable foundation. Look at the azimuthal equidistant projections used by the ancients, and even the explorers of the 1500s. They understood the circular nature of the world's boundaries. When we examine these ancient charts, we see a central focus, a stationary pivot point around which all things revolve. The geometry is radial. It flows from a center toward a boundary. Why do we struggle to reconcile this with a spinning ball? Because the geometry itself screams of a bounded, enclosed system. These maps utilize a geometry of stability. If the Earth were a spinning sphere, hurtling through a vacuum, the mathematics of ancient navigation would have been a chaotic mess of shifting horizons. Instead, we find a consistent planar logic that allowed sailors to traverse the vastness with terrifyingly accurate results. The hidden geometry reveals a truth that modern science tries to obscure with complex calculus. The Earth is a stationary plane with a circular perimeter. In ancient maps, the corners of the world were not mere artistic flourishes. They were the boundaries of the enclosure. The geometry of the ancients was built on the reality of the observer. When you stand on a level plane, the horizon is a perfect circle at eye level. This is not a mathematical coincidence. It is the physical reality of a fixed Earth. The geometry of these charts aligns perfectly with the physical experience of the human eye. Why do we discard the most direct evidence, our own senses, in favor of abstract, theoretical models that contradict the very ground we stand on? Modern academia has replaced the elegant, simple geometry of the Creator with a convoluted web of equations designed to hide the truth. They want you to believe that the world is a complex, shifting enigma so that you remain dependent on their experts to tell you where you are. But the ancient maps tell a different story. They tell a story of a world that is orderly, bounded, and purposeful. They show a world that is a magnificent, stable stage for the drama of life. When we look at the geometry of the ancient charts, we see the hand of a designer who laid the foundations of the world to be firm and unshakable. The tragedy of the modern mind is that we have traded the clarity of the plane for the confusion of the sphere. We have been taught to distrust the flat horizon and the level sea, replacing the solid truth of the ancients with a mathematical illusion. This is the great deception to make the simple complex and the obvious mysterious. If we can reclaim the geometric truth found in these ancient charts, we reclaim our place in a purposeful universe. We move from being accidental specks in a void to being the center of a magnificent, designed creation. The maps are not wrong. Our interpretation has been hijacked. It is time to look at the geometry as it truly is. Why do all ancient maps look similar? When we look back at the vast archives of human history, we are often met with a curious, almost haunting uniformity. If you peel back the layers of modern cartography, the satellites, the GPS-driven projections, the complex mathematical models, you find yourself staring at a sea of ancient maps that all seem to whisper the same truth. From the oldest parchment fragments of the Mediterranean to the sprawling charts of the East, there is a consistent, repeating geometry. The lands are centered, the oceans surround them, and the boundaries of the known world are framed by a circular, bounded reality. Modern academia tells us this is merely a lack of sophistication or a primitive mesunderance of the globe. They suggest that ancient people were simply too limited in their tools to grasp the curvature of a sphere. But ask yourself, why would 1,000 different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and vast oceans, all independently arrive at the exact same geometric concept? If they were truly lost in a sea of confusion, why is their vision so remarkably consistent? The answer is not that they were too primitive to know the truth, but that they were describing the reality they lived in. Truth, when it is objective and divinely placed, does not fluctuate based on the technology of the era. The ancients weren't trying to invent a map. They were attempting to document the fixed, stationary foundation laid by the Creator. When we see the same circular motifs, the same focus on a central landmass, and the same structural layout across disparate civilizations, we are seeing the fingerprints of a singular, designed truth. The reason these maps look so similar is that they were all looking at the same stationary plane. They were not mapping a spinning ball. They were mapping the bounded, enclosed, and perfectly stable realm that we inhabit. To suggest that they were wrong simply because they didn't have satellites is to assume that human error is the default state of the past. But we know that the ancients possessed an observational clarity that we have traded for the illusion of complexity. Modernists want us to believe that the history of cartography is a slow, stumbling climb from flat Earth ignorance to spherical enlightenment. But this is a clever inversion of reality. The similarity we see is not a shared error, it is a shared witness. They saw the horizon as a level plane, and they mapped what they saw. When we look at these maps, we see the truth of a world that is fixed and unmoving, just as it was described in the ancient scriptures. The consistency is the evidence of a design that was meant to be understood by the human eye. Why do we struggle to accept this? Because to accept the consistency of the ancient map is to accept that the world is not a chaotic, spinning accident, but a structured, purposeful creation. We have been taught to view the uniformity of ancient maps as a failure of science, but in reality, it is the ultimate proof of a common origin. If every culture, from the Nile to the Indus, describes a bounded, stationary world, it is because they were all describing the same truth. We have been conditioned to believe that new means accurate and old means erroneous. This is the great deception of our modern era. They are trying to make us distrust our own senses by telling us that our eyes lie to us. But when the maps of the past align so perfectly with the physical reality of a level Earth, it is not a coincidence. It is a revelation. They are not just maps. They are the echoes of a truth that was once common knowledge before we were taught to look away from the ground beneath our feet. How the Great Circle was actually drawn. Now let us turn our gaze toward the most sophisticated mathematical sleight of hand used to obscure the truth of our physical reality. We have looked at the maps, and we have seen the outlines of the world as it was truly understood by the ancients. But the modernists, those who rely on the shifting sands of secular mathematics rather than the bedrock of revealed truth, will point to the Great Circle to claim our maps are mere projections. They will tell you that the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere is a curved arc, and that ancient cartographers were simply simplifying a globe. But ask yourself, if the ancients were so primitive, why do their measurements align so perfectly with the geometry of a plane? The Great Circle is the ultimate mathematical illusion, a clever veil draped over the eyes of the unsuspecting. In a spherical model, a great circle is a circle that shares the same center as the sphere. It is used to explain why flight paths look like arcs on a flat map. But let us look closer at the reality of the compass and the transit. When a navigator travels from one point to another, they are not traversing a curve. They are moving along a straight path across a fixed, stable plane. The arc is not a physical reality of the Earth's surface. It is a mathematical construct projected onto a flat plane to make the spherical lie fit the observed data. Ancient mariners did not sail along a curve. They sailed along a line. When they used the stars to navigate, they were moving across a level expanse. If the Earth were truly a spinning ball, the mathematics of the Great Circle would require a constant, shifting adjustment for the curvature of the Earth at every single degree of longitude. Yet the ancient maps, the maps of the ancients who lived in harmony with the Creator's design, show a radial geometry. They show a world where the poles are central and the circumference is the outer boundary. These were not projections. They were accurate depictions of a bounded, stationary realm. The Great Circle was never a path around a ball. It was the circumference of the world, the boundary of the known realm. Modern science has taken this geometric concept and weaponized it. They have turned the geometry of the circle into a tool of obfuscation, telling us that the straight lines of our travels are actually curves. This is the height of modern arrogance to tell the man who sees a flat horizon that his eyes are lying to him because a complex equation says he is actually moving in an arc. We are taught to distrust our senses in favor of a model that can only be verified through more complex, circular logic. It is a beautiful, perfect trap. If we accept the Great Circle as a physical curve, we fall into the trap of believing the Earth is a spinning, wobbling sphere. But if we recognize it as the circumference of a plane, the maps of old suddenly become the most logical, precise instruments ever created. The ancients weren't approximating the globe. They were accurately mapping the stationary foundation of our world. They understood that the shortest distance is a straight line, and that the heavens and the earth work together in a perfect, bounded design. To believe the Great Circle is a curve is to accept a world of constant motion and instability. To see it as a boundary is to find the solid ground upon which all truth stands. The coincidence of the azimuthal layout. Now, let us turn our gaze to one of the most striking mathematical curiosities found in the archives of human history. When we examine the ancient maps, those preserved parchments that were not meant to deceive, but to reflect the reality of the world as it was laid out by the Creator, we encounter a profound structural mystery. Specifically, we must look at the azimuthal equidistant projection. In modern cartography, this is often presented as a mere mathematical convenience, a way to flatten a sphere onto a plane for the sake of navigation. But if we look closer, if we peel back the layers of modern indoctrination, we see that the layout of these ancient maps is not a projection of a globe, but a perfect, literal representation of the Earth's true design. Observe the geometry. In an azimuthal layout, the North Pole sits at the center, and the continents radiate outward toward the perimeter. This is not a mere coincidence of geometry. It is the very blueprint of our world. The ancients, guided by a wisdom that was not clouded by modern skepticism, understood that the Earth is a stationary plane with the center of the world at the much-revered north. When we look at these ancient maps, we see a perfect alignment of landmasses that only makes sense if the Earth is a circular plane. If you take the ancient maps and compare them to this specific layout, the landmasses fit with a precision that defies the spherical logic we are taught in schools. The distances, the proportions, the way the meridians fan out, it all points to a centered, bounded, and stable plane. The modernists will tell you that this is just a map projection, a mathematical trick to make a round ball look flat on paper. They suggest that the distortion is an error we must live with. But ask yourselves, why would the ancients, who were master navigators and observers of the heavens, use a geometry that so perfectly mirrors the actual physical distribution of the continents if it weren't the truth? To say it is a projection is to invent a complexity to hide a simple truth. It is much easier to believe in a mathematical illusion than to accept the plain, observable evidence of the handiwork of God. The azimuthal layout is not a way to flatten the world. It is the original map that the ancients were trying to preserve. This is where the modern mind struggles. We have been trained to look at the distortions on a flat map and call them errors, rather than looking at the spherical models and realizing they are the true distortions. We are taught to distrust our eyes in favor of complex equations. But the ancient maps show us a world where the center is fixed and the edges are the boundary. This layout is the physical evidence of a bounded world, a world with a firm foundation, rather than a spinning ball lost in an infinite void. It is the geometry of the firmament itself. When we look at the convergence of these lines, we see the truth of our design. The ancients didn't need satellites to know where they stood. They needed only to observe the layout of the world around them. They understood that the Earth was a stage, a stable platform designed for life. By clinging to these ancient layouts, we are not being primitive. We are being precise. We are aligning ourselves with the truth that the geometry of the world was set from the beginning, long before the modern era attempted to reshape our reality through the lens of humanism and false mathematics. The truth behind the Mercator lie. Aha, the truth behind the Mercator lie. But now, we must face the masterwork of the Great Deception. If the ancient maps were merely the musings of primitive minds, why does a single mathematical projection continue to dictate the very shape of our reality? Consider the Mercator projection, the map that has been etched into the minds of every child since the mid-1500s. It is a brilliant piece of geometry, but it is also a brilliant piece of theater. When you look at a Mercator map, you see a world that is stretched, distorted, and fundamentally broken. It pulls the north to the top and expands the landmasses of Europe and Greenland until they dwarf the true majesty of the equatorial regions. It creates a lopsided, imbalanced sphere that suggests a world of vast, empty oceans and shrinking land. when in reality, the truth is much more stable. The aha moment comes when you realize that the Mercator projection wasn't designed to show us the truth of the Earth's shape. It was designed to preserve the illusion of navigation. It is a mathematical convenience used to mask a physical reality. By stretching the latitudes to make straight-line sailing possible, they have successfully stretched our perception of the truth. They have taken the vast, circular truth of the ancient world, where the lands are laid out in a perfect, bounded harmony, and stretched it into a vertical cylinder. This isn't just a cartographic error, it is a psychological tool. By placing the poles at the top, they create a sense of a top and a bottom, a hierarchy of the world that suggests we are spinning on a ball, losing our footing, constantly falling. Why was this lie so necessary? Why did the cartographers of the late Renaissance find it so vital to preserve this distortion? Think of the economics of the era. If you can convince the world that the Earth is a globe, you can control the exploration, the trade routes, and the very boundaries of human thought. By making the world a sphere, they made the edges disappear, making the vastness of the Creator's design seem like a finite, manageable, and ultimately cold vacuum. They turned a bounded, purposeful creation into a boundless, meaningless void. The Mercator projection makes the world easier to navigate for a sailor, but it makes the truth harder to navigate for a soul. When we look back at the ancient maps, those beautiful, circular representations that align with the biblical descriptions of a fixed, stationary plane, we see a world that is centered and stable. But the Mercator life forces us to live in a world of constant motion and centrifugal chaos. It is a tool of the modern era, used to instill a sense of wandering without a center. It is an addiction to the idea of globalism, a word that sounds grand but often serves to mask the reality of our localized, divinely placed truth. If we had never accepted this projection as the standard, would we still be looking at the world through the lens of a navigator, trying to find his way on a spinning ball? Or would we be looking at the magnificent, stationary reality that has been right before our eyes since the beginning of time? The truth is not something you can project onto a cylinder. The truth is the foundation upon which the world was built, reclaiming the lost wisdom of the ancients. When we gaze upon the cartographic treasures of antiquity, the ancient maps that predate our modern, mathematically smoothed globes, we aren't just looking at archaic drawings. We are looking at a window into a time when the world was understood not as an abstract ball spinning in a void, but as a purposeful, stationary, and bounded creation. These maps, crafted by civilizations that lived in harmony with the physical realities of their surroundings, often depict a plain, a firmament, and a bounded earth. They don't depict a spinning marble. They depict a stage set for the drama of life. To the modern eye, these might seem like primitive errors, but one must ask, is it more likely that the ancients were too simple to grasp the truth, or that we have become too sophisticated to recognize it? Reclaiming this lost wisdom is not a matter of retreating into the past, but of recovering a lost perspective of reality. For centuries, the wisdom of the ancients was systematically distilled, filtered, sussed through the lens of modern secularism, and eventually discarded in favor of a model that places humanity in a cosmic accident. We have traded the solid, unmoving foundation of the Earth for a dizzying, relativistic vacuum. When we look at the ancient maps, the maps that sailors used to navigate the vast, unyielding expanses of the oceans, We see a worldview that aligns with the biblical descriptions of an earth fixed upon its foundations. The ancients understood that the world was a stable, designed structure. They didn't need complex calculus to tell them the ground beneath their feet was still. They simply trusted their senses and the wisdom passed down through the generations. The tragedy of the modern era is that we have mistaken complexity for truth. We have built entire systems of education, politics, and even theology around the idea that we are transient guests on a spinning sphere, making us feel small, insignificant, and disconnected from the Creator. This is a profound psychological addiction, the addiction to a hollow mathematical abstraction that replaces the tangible truth of God's handiwork. We have allowed ourselves to be persuaded that the ancients were lost, when in reality, we are the ones wandering in a fog of our own making. We have been conditioned to believe that if something cannot be measured by a satellite, it must not exist. But the ancient maps were not meant to be perfect geometric proofs. They were descriptions of the reality we live in, a bounded, ordered, and purposeful world. To reclaim this wisdom is to challenge the modern appetite for consumption and control. The current global structures thrive on our sense of insignificance. A man who feels he is a cosmic accident is easier to manage, easier to fuel with false hopes, and easier to distract with the empty promises of a technocratic utopia. But when we look at the maps of old, we see a world that demands respect, a world that has boundaries and a center. By recovering this lost understanding, we reconnect with a worldview where truth is not something to be manufactured by a committee of experts, but something to be discovered through the Word and the witness of our own eyes. We must stop trying to fix the ancient wisdom with modern lies and start asking why we were so eager to lose the truth in the first place. We are not reclaiming a myth. We are returning to the bedrock of reality, connecting the dots to our real reality. When we look back at these ancient maps, we aren't merely staring at the cartographic curiosities of a primitive age. We are peering through a veil at the very architecture of our existence. For centuries, we have been told that these maps were the errors of a naive people, the scribblings of those who lacked our sophisticated instruments. But ask yourselves, if the ancients were so lost, why did their maps consistently align with the lived reality of the human eye? Why, when we trace the lines of the ancient world, do we find a consistent, coherent design that places the earth as a fixed, stable plane, centered and purposeful? The dots are not just being connected, they are being revealed as a singular, divine blueprint. We are moving from the realm of mere geography into the realm of reality itself. The modern world has mastered the art of the distraction. We have been conditioned to believe that because we can calculate orbital mechanics or gaze at satellite imagery, we have mastered the truth. But there is a profound difference between a mathematical model and the actual ground beneath your feet. The globalist narrative demands that you distrust your own senses. It tells you that the horizon, that perfectly level line that greets every traveler, is an illusion. It tells you that the stillness of the earth is a trick of physics. This is the great modern addiction, the addiction to an abstract, spinning chaos that makes us feel small, insignificant, and adrift in a void. By convincing us we are on a tiny speck in an infinite vacuum, they have successfully severed our connection to the Creator. If you are a cosmic accident, you are easy to control. If you are the centerpiece of a designed, stationary realm, you are much harder to manipulate. This is where the tragedy of modern education meets the triumph of ancient wisdom. We have traded the solid, reliable truth of the Word and the physical world for a fluid, shifting set of theories that change with every new decade. We see the influence of this in our politics, where the shifting of the truth is used to manage the masses, and in our economics, where we are kept in a constant state of motion to fuel a machine that never rests. The ancient maps weren't just maps. They were testimonies to a world that was stable, bounded, and meant to be understood. They reflected a world where the heavens were a canopy and the earth was a firmament, a structure that provided order rather than chaos. To connect these dots to our real reality is to realize that the conspiracy is not just a political game, but a battle for the human soul. If we can accept the false model, we can be led into a false morality. But when we look at the evidence, when we see that the ancient maps were describing the very reality we inhabit, we find ourselves back in a world of meaning. We see that the earth is not a spinning ball of rock, but a magnificent, fixed stage for the unfolding of history. The solution to our modern disorientation is to stop looking at the screens and start looking at the design. We must reclaim the truth that the ancients understood, that we live in a world of boundaries, purpose, and profound, unshakable stability. This is not a step backward into the past. It is a leap forward into the truth of our origin and our destiny. If you made it all the way to the end, leave a comment with 888. Let us know what you learned, or if you have any questions, feel free to add your own insights and share your thoughts with us. If this channel has made a difference in your life, take a moment to write about how it's helped you. Your words could provide the exact clarity someone else needs to hear right now. As we look back through the centuries, we realize that the maps of our ancestors were not mere attempts to represent a spherical surface on a flat plane. They were an accurate reflection of the reality they inhabited. When we study the ancient charts of the Greeks, the Egyptians, and the explorers of the East, a singular, consistent pattern emerges. They didn't struggle with the distortion of a globe because they were mapping the truth of a stationary, level plane. They understood the geometry of their world, recognizing that the earth is a fixed foundation, a vast expanse bounded by the great ice rim, much like the ancient maps always suggested. The modern era has taught us to view these old maps as primitive or imprecise, but that is where the great deception lies. If these maps were truly wrong, why do they so perfectly mirror the azimuthal equidistant projection used by modern cartographers today? Why is it that the most ancient wisdom aligns so precisely with the very geometry we use to navigate the stars? Our ancestors were not lost in a sea of confusion. They were master navigators of a realm that was understood, not theorseed. They understood the distinction between the surface we walk upon and the celestial movements above, seeing the earth as a stable, bounded plane, rather than a spinning ball adrift in a vacuum. To look upon an ancient map is to witness a window into a lost reality. It is easy to dismiss these designs as mere artistic expression, but there is a profound mathematical consistency to their layout that defies simple coincidence. They were capturing the truth of the horizon, the truth of the firmament, and the truth of a world that remains centered and still. As we peel back the layers of modern indoctrination, we find ourselves returning to the wisdom that was once common knowledge. Perhaps this truth is not meant for everyone. It requires a willingness to question the maps we have been handed and to trust the evidence of our own senses. and the records of those who came before us. For those who seek the truth behind the veil, these ancient charts are not just relics of the past. They are guides back to the real world. They remind us that the truth has always been right in front of us, waiting for us to reclaim the wisdom that was once ours to hold. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by giving it a like. Before you go, if this message has helped you in any way, share it in the comments, even just one sentence. Your words might be the confirmation someone else has been waiting for. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated. Wish us luck so we can keep making videos. Share the link with a friend who doesn't know about Flat Earth yet, or one who already knows about it. Share the link with your friends and anyone else who might be interested. Join us. See you soon.